In this video, we'll discuss about the installation of the VRA and setting up the VRA environment. We'll talk about the hardware requirements. Then we'll look at the DNS records creation. Then we'll look at the easy installer and setting up the VRA environment. So first and foremost, let's understand that what all is required in order to set up a VRA 8.1. First, we should have a VMware Vsphere 6.0 and above. Virtualization platform. So at least of an ESXi server with a 12-core CPU, 48 GB of RAM, and at least of 200 GB of hard disk space, and another ESXi server with again 12-core CPU, 48 GB of RAM, and 200 GB of hard disk space. So from vCenter, create a data center, then cluster, then add the ESXi hosts into cluster. So the first and foremost thing you need in Vsphere environment. So and make sure that you have one at least of a shared storage which is attached to the both ESXi servers, which is roughly around a 200 GB of size, so that we can test all the features. So the first and foremost thing, so we require a VMware Vsphere 6.0. Then you need to have an AD environment. So to integrate with the identity manager, and where we enable the users to use the AD user accounts to authenticate to the VRA environment and access the services. Third, download the VRA 8.1 environment software. So register for the trial. Then you download the trial copy of the VRA 8.1. So VMware will provide you an evaluation licenses. So you can use that license for a period of 60 days of time. So download the VRA 8.1 software. So go to the Google and say called as in VMware VRA 8.1 download evaluation. Search on the one in the right side, you see called as a download a free trial. Click on download a free trial. Register to download your 60-day trial. So provide your user account and password. If you don't have an account, you can set up one account. Give name. So I'm just giving a name called as Venkat Ramana. So I'm giving it venkat@acuteLearn.in. So I'm trying to register an account. Say continue. Just re-enter the mail ID and set up your account. So it's saying user must have at least 20 characters or something. Any one of the special character. Just provide the necessary information which is required to set up an account. You can just say so these are all your optional. Just go to the capture, enter the capture, agree for the end user license agreement. So we missed out. Okay, it is not taking the password. Let's give it something different. Optional, include your so click on start free trial. You're almost done. So let's go to the email and verify the email ID. So it is going to send us one email to confirm the email ID. Just go to the email ID and click on the link which you have received. just complete the activation. So once you have activated the email account, click on the trial and log in with the account. Okay. So I can see the license keys. In case if you don't get this, here you'll find one register for evaluation. You can just click on that. If you already have an account, then you just find called as an register my evaluation, then you click on that. So VMware will provide you two license keys, one for a standard edition, one for enterprise edition. Just copy that and keep it on notepad for handy purpose. So down we can see called as an VMware vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager 8.1.0 is the installer. So this will be roughly around 12 GB of size. So you can just click on download, and so once you have the software downloaded, so I've just downloaded and kept it ready. So this way you get the software from the VMware website and the license keys. So in order to set up the vRealize environment, so you need to have a Vsphere environment. So our Vsphere environment looks like this, the whole VRA environment. So we have a server, which is an AD server. Which is an 192.168.72.10, domain name alvra.net. So we have a vCenter. So alvra vcenter.al vra.net 192.168.72.11. So which is part of a domain, or you can use an virtual appliance of the vCenter. So we have two ESX servers. So ESXi01 .alvra.net 192.168.72.13, ESXi 02.alvra.net 192.168.72.14. So we added these two ESX servers into a vCenter under a cluster. So now we are going to use this environment to deploy the VRA environment. So once you have the easy installer download completed, then you log into a machine where the easy installer can interact with the vCenter and ESXi host for the deployment. So I'm going to use one of the machine in the network through which I'll mount the ISO installer, or I would say called as easy installer, and from there we can launch that. As part of the deployment, make sure that you have at least of a 12 core processor and at least of a 48 GB RAM for a smooth deployment. So as part of the deployment, so the VRA first will deploy an lifecycle manager appliance. The lifecycle manager appliance. So the easy installer will take all the necessary input which is required to deploy LCM, to deploy identity manager, and to deploy the VRA environment. So we have an IDM, identity manager, and VRA appliance. So this VRA appliance requires a 12 core processor with 48 GB of RAM, and identity manager will take a 4 cores with a 10 GB of RAM, and LCM will also take a 4 core processor with a 10 GB of RAM. So the easy installer will collect all the information which is required to set up an VRA environment. Then easy installer will interact with vCenter and the ESXi servers. So we'll deploy the LCM, and LCM will deploy the identity manager. LCM will deploy the VRA. The easy installer will initiate the complete end-to-end setup of the VRA environment. So overall, it would take roughly around 1.5 hours to 2 hours of time to set up the overall VRA environment. Right. So once you have this environment, now you keep handy off the next thing which we need to do is host names and IP addresses. So what is the host name which you're going to use it, and what IP address you're going to assign? What is your default gateway? What is your DNS? What is your domain name? So for an LCM, so I'm going to use a host name as Vmware lcm.al.vra.net, an IP address. I'm going to use 192.168.72.100. For IDM, I'm going to use a host name as Vmware idm.al.vra.net and IP address 192.168.72.101. Then VRA environment host name VMware VRA.al.vra.net and IP address 192.168.72.102. So the subnet mask for all these ones will be 255.255.255.0 and default gateway will be 192.168.72.12 and DNS1 192.168.72.10. So based on your environment, so first you note down what is the host name you want to provide and what is the IP address which you want to associate for this particular virtual appliances. And during the deployment of the environment, it is going to ask you all these details. So keep it handy. Right. So the next step, so log into AD server and create DNS records. DNS records. So make sure that we have the DNS records are being created for this environment so that they can be reachable using a fully qualified domain name. So I'm going to the AD environment where my DNS is being hosted. Let me sign out and set the resolution. log into the AD server. So open the DNS tools. So expand your forward lookup zone. Go to the domain. Right click on this one, say host. So take your VM LCM and assign an IP address and say add host. Okay. Similarly, IDM 101, add it. Then VRA, the IP address 102, add it. So make sure that you have the DNS records available. So which is AL VRA vCenter. So if you have a virtual appliance of vCenter, then create a DNS record for that. And we can see IDM, LCM, and VRA. Right. So make sure that before we proceed with the easy installer, all these DNS records are being updated. So let's go to the easy installer. So I have downloaded and mounted the ISO image as a DVD drive. Then we would see here, you'll find the LCM UI installer Win32. Come down like this. So before that, let me go to the DNS. Sorry, let me check alvra vcenter.alvra.net. I'm able to resolve. Make sure that you are able to resolve VMware LCM. So as you have not deployed, so we are not getting a response, but at least we can see an IP address which it is pointing to the. Then similarly VRE. So make sure that you are able to resolve the IP addresses. So launch the easy installer. So once you click on the easy installer, so I went to the ISO image mounted. So under this directory, I see called as a Win32. So launch a file called as an installer. So we get install migrate. So click on install. Now it is asking introduction, vRealize automation, like manager, identity manager. Click on next. Accept the license agreement. So vCenter server host name. So enter either the IP address of the vCenter or the FQDN name. So I'm saying ALVRA. So better reason, I'm giving 19.168.72.11 is my vCenter. And what is the user account and password to authenticate to the vCenter? So provide the necessary credentials so that it can check what cluster is available, what ESXi servers are available. Select the data center under which you want to deploy. So if there are multiple data centers within the vSphere, then you can choose. Select the cluster. So on which data stores you want to deploy this machine. So I'm selecting a DS14, enable it in disk mode. To which network the VMs are going to connect, VM network, whatever the appropriate port group selected. How are you going to assign an IP address, static, subnet mask? For all the three virtual appliances, what is going to be subnet mask? What is the gateway, DNS servers, and the domain name? So provide NTP server for appliances. So specify the NTP server as a time.windows.com. Password. For all the three appliances, the Lifecycle Manager, IDM, and VRA, the root account password. So it is going to set the root account password. So remember this particular password, note it down this particular password somewhere so that this will be useful so that you don't forget next time. Now this is for the root password of the three appliances. Lifecycle Manager configuration. Virtual machine name. So on the vSphere, what is the name of the virtual machine you want to provide? I gave it as a VRA LCM. What is the IP address of this particular virtual appliance? Host name. So VMware LCM.al VRA.net. And the data center name default. vCenter can be in default. So select this. Click on next. Install new VMware Identity Manager. So first we specified the details of the LCM. Now we are specifying the details of the Identity Manager. Virtual machine name VM idm.alvra.net. This is the virtual machine name on the ESXi host. The IP address of the one and the host name of the IDM appliance and default configuration admin. So which is the default user account and the default system domain. So I'm giving an administrator as the account name. So provide the virtual machine name, IP address, and your host name, whatever we have noted down in the notepad and whatever the DNS records which we created. Make sure that there is no typo errors. Click on next. Standard deployment, provide the deployment name and the license key. So whatever the license key which you got it from here, from the VMware, so we can just simply copy that and paste it here. Now these are your VRA environment. Virtual machine name, and IP address of the virtual machine, that is virtual appliance, VRA appliance, and FQDN name of the VRA appliance. So provide these details. So based on the notepad and the DNS records which you created, make sure they match it and there are no spelling mistakes or any typo errors. So click on next. So now click on submit. So this would take roughly around 1.5 hours to 2 hours of time. So it will first set up the LCM, then it will set up the IDM and VRA, and automatically it will configure the integration between the VRA and IDM appliances. Okay. Right. So we'll just wait for the installation to be finished. I'll pause the recording. Now we can see that the installation of the vRealize environment is finished. Now we can see the LCM URL to interact with LCM and to interact with IDM and to interact with the VRA appliance. So let's close this. So open a browser and let's verify the installation. So I'm going to the vCenter. So in the vCenter, I'm logging within vCenter. So we are able to see three virtual machines. One is Identity Manager, VRA, and LCM appliances. Okay. Let me go to the another tab. So VMware LCM.al VRA.net. So log into the Lifecycle Manager. So by default, the user account will be admin@local, and whatever the password which we gave during the deployment, so it will be the same password. So you have to remember that password. Yes, now we are able to log into the Lifecycle Manager, and we are able to see the Lifecycle Management environment. Let me go to the VRA. So VMware VRA.al VRA.net. Now we can see VMware vRealize automation. So go to login page. So it will redirect you to the Identity Manager. Now the user account which we gave during the deployment, by default administrator will be selected, but however if you have changed it, then you have to use that user account and the password which we gave during the deployment. Right, so we can see the VRA console, the my services, then we would see called as an identity and access management, then we would see called as a branding. Okay, right, that is how we have to install the VMware vRealize 8.1. Right, in the next video we will look at that, how to integrate the identity manager with AD and assign the roles and permissions.